Alrighty, I reckon we're good to go, JJ. We've got heaps of people on the line, so it's good. Let's skip off that and get back to here. And over to you, mate.
Okay. Good morning and welcome to the last in our current series of speaker taster sessions. Those of you who don't know me, I'm JJ Jackson, Director of Performing Artistes. I say last session, rest assured we will be back in a couple of weeks' time, but we thought we'd give everyone a bit of a break. But we did want to go out on a bang, and we've got a fabulous session for you lined up this morning. Those of you who are regulars to our sessions will recall seeing Jeff Ram a couple of weeks ago, a customer service guru. Jeff introduced us to Keith, who's a fabulous speaker. He's been speaking around the world for a good couple of decades. He's published 5 books. But what really grabbed us was the fact that he's really embraced virtual presentations. In fact, he's given 36 over the last 3 months. I say around the world. He's based in Brisbane, but he's been able to work around the world, and he's no stranger to getting up early or going to bed very late. So he has literally worked the clock. As I say, we've been really impressed with the way he's embraced virtual presentations, hence why we've built this morning as somewhat of a Zoom masterclass. So no pressure, Keith, but without further ado, let me welcome, a very warm welcome from Brisbane, Keith.
Yeah, thanks very much, JJ, and thanks to the Performing Artistes to give me the opportunity to hang out with you for an hour. So greetings from Brisbane, Australia. My background is Burleigh Beach on the Gold Coast. A couple of people have asked me that already. We live in some interesting times. Some say confusing, some say chaotic, but we live in some really interesting times. When COVID first hit, I thought, geez, we're in for the long haul here. And so one of the things that I did early on is I reached out to 300 of my clients globally, made 300 phone calls, connected with all of them. Why? Because everybody had plenty of time. And I just started to notice some language in people's mindset around, a lot of people are saying, we just gotta get through this. And the message that I keep on giving people now is this is not about getting through COVID, this is about growing through it. Either growing the relationships that you have with your customers and clients, growing your leadership capabilities, growing yourself personally and professionally, growing your business even. There are some businesses that are doing exceptionally well in this environment. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with you today is some of those insights, but more importantly, I wanted to share also 3 phases that I believe that we're going to go through. And by the way, we've already gone through one. The 3 phases of COVID, before we get into a recovery, a rebound mode, is the first was, when it first hit, it was like, what now? What do we do now? Let's get people home. Let's get them so they can work from home. What do we need to do to make that happen? One of my clients shared a great story with me, and they said, Keith, we were working on a project for about 18 months with our IT team. To get it so people could work from home. It was going to be about a $1.3 million CapEx spend, and it was going to take about 12 months. And when COVID hit, we did it in 10 days, and we didn't spend 1.3 million. And so that hit. The phase we're in right now is what's new. There will be this new normal. It will never be like it was because everybody's had to change, adjust, modify. And then the third piece is what's necessary. We're not there yet. Until people really come back to work, there will not be this intensity of what we need to do, what's necessary to grow our business and truly take advantage of the new marketplace, this next normal. So I thought today what I'd do is I'd talk a little bit about not just going through it, but growing through it. And I'm going to give you 2 angles. One is for yourself personally, and the second is for the organisation that you work for or with, or the people that you serve in your associations and organisations. So the hardest thing you have to do is think, write a few things in the chat box. I love using that. So this is not a sit and catch up on emails presentation. This is one where I'm actually going to get you to write a few things in the chat box as we go through. Sophie was very kind to send out a handout to everybody. If you haven't got that, that'll be in your inbox. Do you need it necessarily for today? No, but there's some great summary notes. But you can use it as well if you want to going through. So I reckon we should jump into it. That's probably a good cue to do that. All right, let's talk a little bit about, and by the way, welcome, thank you. I bet you there was 10 other things you could have been doing today, but I appreciate you spending some time with me. You know, one of my clients globally is Harley Davidson, and I've been really fortunate about the last 7 years to have worked for them. Now, I have to tell you, when I was first approached to speak for Harley, I didn't know anything. Now, everybody knows Harley Davidson, but I didn't know too much about their legend, their brand. And so I did a bit of research, and I saw a great interview by the head of Harley Davidson, a guy called Richard Teerlink, and a journalist. And the journalist asked him this question. He said, what's it like being in the motorbike manufacturing business? And Richard Teerlink, the CEO, president of Harley Davidson, looked him straight in the eye and he said, we're not in that business. And the journalist was a bit perplexed, and he said, yes, you are. You make Harley Davidsons. He said, that might be what we do, but that's not the business we're in. The journalist's follow-up question was, okay, what business are you really in then? He said, what we sell is the ability for a 43-year-old accountant to dress in black leather, ride through small towns, and have people be afraid of them. We're a lifestyle business. And so it got me thinking about this presentation today. You know, we have to be really clear now on what business you're really in. And I believe there are 3 things that you need to be in right now. You need to be in the business of creating clarity. You need to be in the business of changing before you need to, before you have to, before you're made to. And you need to be in the business of capitalizing on every single opportunity. So I want to spend a little bit of time with you. And why are these 3 so important? Because one of the things that's absolutely critical at this point of time is that when we start to think about our businesses, when I start to think about what's going to happen in this next normal, I reckon there's 3 challenges we've got to get across. How do we engage people? How do we create engaged, enthused, energized people? In actual fact, let me give you this as a model to look at on your screen. How do we create engaged, enthused, energized people? How do we make sure we develop leaders, high-performance leaders, for the next normal? And the third is, how do we grow our businesses in this crazy world that we're in? And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time with you and talk about these 3. Talk about, well, how do we engage, how do we develop, and how do we grow? Because that's about changing, that's about clarity, and that's about taking that next steps on capitalising on what's important, what matters, and what's going to make a difference. So the hardest thing you have to do is write a few things down. So let's get into and talk a little bit about clarity. Clarity for yourself personally, because the one thing I do know is the speed of the business is the speed of its leader. Great quote from Lee Iacocca. You know, he was the head of Ford Mustang project and then went over and ran Chrysler. And when their business wasn't going so great, he just said, you know what, it's not our cars, it's us. We have to think bigger, better, bolder, braver for these challenging times. And that is so relevant right now. So let's talk a little bit about clarity, because what I can tell you is with clarity comes confidence. And with confidence comes certainty. And with certainty comes consistency. If this makes sense, can you put a Y in the chat box for me, if you'd be so kind? What I've just talked about the challenge is going to be, how do we engage people? How do we develop high performance leaders? Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Jill. Wonderful. Thanks, Rosie. Michael. Wonderful. Thanks for that. I appreciate you doing that. So this is what the leaders, my 300 CEOs are telling me is, Keith, how do we keep people engaged? How do we get them engaged, enthused, energized? And you guys guys and gals in the UK, you've had it a hell of a lot tougher than we have in Australia. You know, it's been difficult. You know, what are you in your 3rd month of lockdown? You know, now I can drive anywhere, go whatever I want to do. You know, I mean, limits on how many people in a restaurant, but I can go out and do virtually anything. I know you're still grappling with that, and if you're up in Scotland, obviously they've relaxed it a little bit even more. So let's talk a little bit about clarity as we go through. So here's what I can tell you about clarity. The first, if we're going to, by the way, if we're going to create engaged, enthused, energized people, then they have to know and have to know where you're going. They need to have clarity. They need to be able to follow someone who knows where they're going. This is why it's so important to have purpose at the moment. Now, by the way, I talk a lot about having a vision for the future, a long-term goal. My definition of long-term goal now is somewhere between 30 days, if they're your people, and if it's your business, 6 months. That's the long-term goal. Why? Because I believe that's what we can control the most. And you and I both know you have to control the controllables. Because if you don't feel like you've got control, then everything is happening to you and you're not making things happen. The second is plan. You know, why did people, by the way, I don't know if it happened in the UK, it happened here in Australia, why did people buy so much toilet paper? Why did people stock up on so much pasta and rice? Yeah, I'll tell you the reason why. Because if you don't have a plan, you panic. And so this is about making sure that people know the plan. And if you can't give them certainty about where we're going to be in the next 6 months or 12 months, then the next 30 days, here's our plan. Because every one of us needs to feel like we're making progress. I don't know about you personally, but for me, if I don't feel like I'm making progress, I become a bit frustrated. And so this is about making sure that people feel like they're moving towards what they want and moving away from what they don't want. This is so important if you're going to create engaged, enthused, energized people, energized leaders. You have to be the living example of this. Why? I've written 4 best-selling books around passion, goals, direction, and focus. And you think, geez, Keith, there's now time to talk about passion? Absolutely. Why? Because here's what I can tell you. Well, let me actually ask you this question. How do you know? Passion is about energy. How do you know when you hang around negative people? Simple. You feel a lot better after you left them. You know why? Because if you said to me, Keith, you could never ever use the word passion ever again in a presentation, in a book, in an article, on a slide, too easy. I'd change the word passion to energy. You want to hang around people that have got good energy, don't you? And see, one of the things that we're going to need to not just go through it, but to grow through COVID, is that we're going to have some juice in the tank for further down the track. Because I can see this happening, is that people are becoming COVID fatigued. They're working longer. They're working harder. You know, everybody got concerned that people weren't going to be productive. Oh, I reckon people are more productive now because they don't have the 2.5 hour commute every day. And so this is about making sure that we work people, if we want to engage them, is that we work them. The second piece of the puzzle with this is that you have to know what drives people. And so the research that I've done over the last 17 years around what drives high performance, I've been always curious at how do we know, how do some people who are smart, intelligent, go and achieve results? How do people that don't seem as motivated, they achieve the same results? How is that happening? And it's because it comes down to what drives them. What I can share with you is of the 135 different emotions you can experience as an adult, 64 of them are positive. Of those 64, they break down into 8 what I call goal drivers. What do I mean by that? Well, when you know what your driver is, you will do the uncomfortable and the inconvenient. You'll do the things that are difficult. And so the thing I can share with you, in actual fact, one of the slides I want to share with you now is that what I can tell you is unless your people have an emotional, mental and physical connection to your goal, they'll never be truly committed, compelled or connected to it. And so when people have got an emotional, mental, physical, what does that really look like? Why, what, how? Feel, think, do. Heart, head, hands. When people have got an emotional connection to it, they will do the uncomfortable. They will do the inconvenient. They'll go the extra mile for you and your business. So everybody has a different driver. What I can share with you, of these 8 goal drivers, you need to understand all 8 of them. Now, I've written this in the workbook, so you don't have to write too many notes about this, but I want you to identify what's going to be your driver for the next 30 days. What's going to drive you to do things that are a little bit unique? I was sharing this with the team at Performing Artiste, is that, if you said to me 8 months ago, Keith, can you do a virtual presentation for us? Why would you want me to do that? I'll just get on a plane. I've got clients. I'm in the UK every quarter. Why would I, need to do that? And now, 2 months into, obviously, this, 3 months now into it, one of the things that I made a decision in about the 4th week is I said, how do I be as good live? How do I be as good virtual as I am live, in person? And so I started, and I've got to tell you, it's been uncomfortable for me to learn all this technology, to learn how to set up a studio so it is, sharp and crisp, and the sound is good, the lighting's great, the cameras are excellent. And so I was driven by one of these goal drivers. So let me share with you the 8 key goal drivers. And what I'm going to get you to do is very shortly type it into the box. Let me give you the 8 first. I'm going to walk through these twice. There's explanations in the workbook. You don't need to read the explanations. But if we talk about what drives people to do the uncomfortable, the inconvenient, and the unknown, it's these. People want to feel successful. They go, oh, Keith, everyone feels successful. Yeah, that's what I thought. But people are driven by different degrees of success. People want to feel purposeful. People want to feel inspired. People want to feel happy. People want to feel organised. By the way, this is my current driver at the moment. I've got a list of about 12 projects on the wall there to make my business better, to improve it, to enhance it. People want to feel respected. People want to feel confident, and people want to feel relaxed. So here's what I'd like you to do. In the next 30 days, how do you want to feel? Because here's what we do know. Unless you have an emotional connection to your goal, you'll never truly be committed, compelled, or connected. So one of the things I'd love you to do now is I'm going to come back over to the main screen here, and I'd love you to take a moment and jot in the chat box for me which one of those goal drivers is going to be it for you. I'll put the goal drivers back up on the screen again there for you. How do you want to feel? Now, no passengers in this presentation, by the way. Everyone's a participant. So type in the chat box if you'd be so kind. Love to see how you want to feel in the next 30 days. Don't worry about the goal yet. How do you want to feel about the role you do? Happy. Thanks, Tanya. Organised. Yeah, I'm organised. That's driving me at the moment, Mark. Christina, successful. Joe, happy. Danielle, happy. Purposeful, Andrew, love it. Inspired, Beck, super. Happy, Ellie. Toby, relaxed. Purposeful, respected. Oh, you know what I should do? I should tell you how I make the chat box work. If you type something in there, I'll use your name. If you mark it private to me, I won't use your name. That's just fair. What else have we got here? Successful, organised, purposeful, respected. Yep, great. Natalina, purposeful, or Natalie. Nick, inspired. Okay, you got this down pat. Rightio. So guess what you've done? You've now completed the first part of my 6-part formula on how to make things happen. So let me go back over here. Here's what I'm going to get you to do. So you've completed the first part. The first part is to identify your driver. So now you can write this down or you can use the handout, whatever you feel cool with. So now that you know what's going to drive you, let's say it's organised. So for me, it's organised. Step number 2 is you have to define your goal. If you could just achieve one goal in the next 30 days, what would that goal be? If you could achieve one goal in the next 30 days. So for me, it's completing 3 major projects over here on the wall. I have 3 projects that are, in essence, going to set me up for the next probably 6 to 12 months. So I'm driven in the next 30 days to complete those 3 projects, launch those products, get things happening, start the momentum. So I want you to write down what's the number 1 goal you want to achieve in the next 30 days that is going to help you to feel organised, relaxed, successful, inspired, happy, confident? What is that? Remember, this goal has got to deliver that emotion to you. Otherwise, it won't energise you, it won't engage you. So think about what the goal is. I won't get you to share that, it's personal. Here's the step number 3, pick a date. Well, I said next 30 days, so I think, what are we today, about the 15th, 16th, 17th? No, it's probably about the 19th or something. So pick a date in July. What day in July do you want to have this goal achieved by? And you might say, you know what, Keith, I actually want to achieve this by the 30th of July. That's okay. You can have like a 6-week goal if you want to do that, but you've got to pick a date. Now, here's the next piece of the puzzle. Step number 4. Now, by the way, when you pick a date, it has to be a day. So you have to know the day, the date, the month, and the year. You have to be specific. You want to be in this corridor of clarity, not the chasm of confusion. You want to make sure that, it's just the 30th. Well, is that a Friday? Is it a Saturday? Is it a Sunday? What is it? Step number 4, 5 reasons why. If you don't have 5 reasons why, any excuse will do. Too hot, too cold, too many, too few, too little, too much, too hard, too easy, Keith. This is going to be too easy to do. So you need to understand what are the 5 reasons why. Because unless you have 5 reasons why, any excuse will do. You'll either do it for a reason, or you'll find an excuse. You cannot have both. So what are the reasons why for you? Step number 5. Now, I'm actually going to get you to write this in the chat box for me if you're okay. So I don't need to know the goal. But here's the question I've got for you. What are 2 things that you need to stop doing to achieve that goal? And what are 2 things that you need to start doing to achieve that goal? You see, for you to achieve the goal so you can feel this and to be able to achieve it by this date because you want to feel this reason why, you're going to have to do something different. Does that make sense? So what are the 2 things you need to stop doing? What are the 2 things you need to start doing? Can you take a moment and in the chat box, if you'd be so kind, tell me what you need. Don't tell me the goal, but tell me what you need to start doing and tell me what you need to stop doing. Do that for me now if you'd be so kind. Just put that straight in the chat box if you do that. Geez, I'm making you work. All 8 are pretty cool. Thanks, Toby. Lovely. Start engaging and communicating with clients. Love that. That's really important at the moment, to be that calm voice and that safe pair of hands. Wonderful. Need to stop wasting time. Thanks, Tanya, for being so honest. Because we burn time. You know why we burn time? Because we got plenty of it at the moment. We got plenty of time. Hey Tanya, I'm going to say something to you and just put a Y or a no in a yes or an N in the chat box. But what's the most productive day of the year? Day before you go on holidays. Why? Because you go to work with a list. And people come and say, listen, can I grab 5 minutes with you? No, you're not on my list. Can I talk to you in 3 weeks' time when I get back? Does that make sense, Tanya? What else have we got here? Nick, give ideas and support. Love that, Toby. Start focusing. Stop travelling around the world. Yeah, good. Beck, procrastinate. Stop procrastinating and start acting and focusing. Beck, I'm just going to share this with you, but I bet you I'm sharing it with a whole lot more people on this call. What's the greatest robber of self-confidence and self-esteem? Procrastination. What's the greatest enhancer of self-confidence and self-esteem? Is taking action on the things that are most important, that matter, and that mean the world to you. Make sense? Now, if you want to know the key for beating procrastination forever, then it's this, is that you need to forget about finishing it and just take the time to start it. Because I believe once you've started it, the job is finished. So, making sure that you take the time. What else you got? Beck, does that make sense? Start picking up the phone, properly engaging with clients and try new ideas out without fear of failure. This is the time to try stuff. This is the time, because people are going to be forgiving. And this is, you're saying, get the team on board with strategy and building their confidence. Thanks, Christine. Yep, Tanya, wonderful, thank you. Stop being distracted. Hey, listen, there's lots of noise. There's lots of noise, white noise, There's lots of noise out there, and we have to get, who was that? That was Nick. We have to get in this corridor of clarity, buddy. We have to get in this corridor of clarity. Andrew, stop procrastinating and getting distracted. Yep. Beck, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Stop taking things as seriously. Yeah, man, there's an amped up energy out there at the moment. I don't want to become a tree hugger with anybody, but there's a whole lot of energy, and people are burning their energy on the what ifs and the maybes. Write this up as a sign. You've got to control the controllables. Hey, let me get back to and by the way, thanks everyone for contributing to the chat box. Really appreciate it. All right, so back over here. You got this. Step 6, really simple. 4 key milestones. So, what do you need to do this week to make this goal come true? What do you have to do this week? What do you have to do the week after? What do you need to do the week after that? Just break it down. Break it down. Remember what I said before? This is about the plan. If you don't have a plan, you'll panic. And so this is about breaking things down into bite-sized, manageable pieces. And once again, get momentum. People often say, Keith, can you come and motivate our people? No, I don't do that. I want to come and give you strategies. I want to give you ideas, insights. I want to give you information. And I want to give you a bit of inspiration so you can go away and implement. Because if I can get you to do that, you will create momentum. And let me tell you, I don't know about you personally, I'll take momentum over motivation any day of the week. I don't need a hot bath. I need to just move towards what I need to achieve. And so this is the 9-part goal driver formula. So, happy to spend some time. I think we're recording this, so happy to reflect back on this as well moving forward. Let's talk about the second piece of the puzzle, which is about what we need to do to change. And so here's the question: what needs to change in your business moving forward? Or maybe the question better is, what do you need to change in your role to move yourself forward? By the way, you've sort of already answered this, because what you said before was around the whole piece of the puzzle being, what do you need to start doing and what do you need to stop doing? I love this quote from Sir Edmund Hillary. I'll put it up on the big screen for you, so you can see the whole lot of it. It's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves. You know, how true is that it's not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves. So what am I talking about? You've got to control this bit of real estate. For you to achieve the goal that you've just written down, you have to pick a mindset. And when we start talking about developing leaders, there's things that you can do, skills and knowledge, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But you know the other piece of the puzzle? If we can make sure high performance, great results start between your ears. If you think there's opportunities out there, there are. If you think there's not, you're right. And so when I come back over to here, the thing I want you to start to think about for me is, I want you to think about what's the mindset you need. For the next 30 days, if I could tell you to pick a lane, what mindset would you pick? People often say, I just need to be positive, Keith. Seriously? Really? Is that it? No, too vague, too broad. You have to pick a mindset. I call them amplified attitudes. Why amplified? You have to turn them up. You have to get a bit of volume in there, a bit of energy in there. And so there are 6 key mindsets. Let me ask you this question. What would happen? What would happen with every cell in your body if you turned up and you were courageous? With every cell in your body, how would you walk? How would you talk? How would you think? What would you say to yourself? What would you say to others? What would you attempt if with every cell in your body you were courageous? If every cell in your body you were tenacious? How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you think? What would you say to yourself? What would you say to others if you were tenacious? What would you hold on to? What would you hold your resolve? If you had limitless, let me give you 2, limitless energy, limitless opportunities, how would you turn up? See, I just think there's a land of opportunities out there at the moment. And so there's not enough hours in the day for me. I said this to JJ about a week, 10 days ago. There's not enough hours in the day. There's just so many opportunities to do the work that I do. And so limitless, how would you turn up? With every cell in your body, you believe that you are limitless. How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you think? What would you say to yourself? What would you say to others if you were limitless? If you were empowered? If you were no longer looking for someone to give you approval? if you were looking for nobody to ordain you and say, you go for it, how would you turn up? If you were no longer seeking permission, if you believed with all of your heart that you were enough, how would you turn up? How would you turn up? How would you walk? How would you talk? How would you think? What would you say to yourself? What would you say to others? If you had great self-love, if you were no longer your harshest critic, if you were no longer your toughest person on you, if you were your best coach, your greatest cheerleader, how would you turn up if you had phenomenal self-love for you, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-belief? How would you turn up? And how would you turn up if you were grateful? How would you turn up if you were grateful? You know, I reckon it's really easy to be grateful when everything's going great. But how do you turn up when it's not? And what do you see? If you don't find the gratitude, then you won't learn the lesson. And if you don't learn the lesson, you become bitter, not better. And so this is about making sure that, what are you grateful? So here's what I'd love you to do. In the chat box, if you'd be so kind, can you tell me what's going to be your mindset in the next 30 days? You don't have to do it for the next year. But moment by moment, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day, what's going to be the top of mind, the forefront of your mind? What's going to be the mindset? Take a moment and put that in the chat box. If you'd be empowered, thanks Tanya, wonderful. Courageous, Beck, yeah, love it. Grateful, Danielle, yeah, grateful is one of my baselines. I reckon there's a gratitude reset happening in the world at the moment. Andrew, limitless. Toby, tenacious, love it, love it. Laura Lee, intentional, absolutely. Yep, great. Yep, self-love, Jill, I think that's what you're saying. Grateful, JJ, Jill, self-loving. Just, you're typing too quick. So this is why it's really important to pick a mindset. Because if you just start thinking, if you woke up in the morning and go, what do I need to do today if I'm empowered? What do I need to do today if I'm limitless? And just use that as your true north. Use that as your true north, the lighthouse that guides you. How powerful would that be? All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of those other basic things that people need to do moving forward. So here's what you have to start to think about. Skills. What do your people need? By the way, what do you need to do? Skills, knowledge, what do you need to improve? What processes do you need to enhance? Now is the perfect time to fix, enhance, change, develop, create. Now's the perfect time to do that. And so, you know, like one of the things that I've been talking to people about is how do they, so one of my North American clients have got about 1,500 salespeople right throughout North America. And they're a mature sales force. What do I mean by that? They're used to getting in the car, going and parking the car, going to the office, opening up the presentation folder and doing their stuff. And so now we're saying, well, we're going to save $16 million US because we don't need to go and see people anymore. We can do it all through this. And they're going, I don't know how to do that. And so I've been giving them some skills and some processes and helping them improve how they present, how they demonstrate. They've got great expertise, they've got great knowledge. How do we just bring them into this next normal? So that's the question I've got for you in your business as well. And then, of course, when we all start to talk about how do we develop people personally, it's about making sure that people are reading the information they need to. I'm running a leadership program at the moment in Mercer, all virtual. Started out when we were face-to-face in January. We've totally converted it to virtual. And you know what? It's a better program. And currently, all of the 60 leaders out of this large organisation of about 6,500 people, they've all received a book from me, not one of my books, but a book called Grit, which is a wonderful book. And so part of their development is making sure they read that before our next accountability session. What are you listening to at the moment? What audio book are you listening to? What are you watching at the moment? You know, I'm limiting the amount of news that I watch. Not because I don't want to be aware, but just because I don't want to be influenced. I don't want to get caught up in it. I don't want to get annoyed at things that the government are doing or whatever it might be. And then the other piece is that now more than ever you need mentors. I know for me personally, I've got a mastermind group that I meet with every fortnight. I've got a mentor I talk to every week, and I have a business mentor that I meet with virtually, have been doing this for the last 3 years, based in the US. And I have an hour with them and we talk about what we're implementing. So this is really important that people start to think about what it is. So here's the question I've got for you moving forward, is that what is it that you need to do? What is it that you need to work on, develop? Now, you don't have to tell me it specifically, but is it a skill? Is it some knowledge? Do you have to become better at virtual? And maybe, JJ, maybe this is another session if people want it, but happy to share with people the 8 strategies I've got for help making virtual work more effectively, as an individual, whatever it might be. But type in the chat box if you'd be so kind. What is it that you need to work on, to change, to develop? Is it a process? Is it, what is it in particular you need to make happen, moving yourself forward? What could that be? What could that be for you? Is it a process? Is it, do you need to pick up a couple of books and start reading the books that have been sitting alongside your bed for a little while? Wonderful. Tanya, improve client engagement in a virtual world. And can I tell you, Tanya, there's an art to it. There's an art to it. Because you know what the challenge is? Is people try and take what they did across a table from someone and then do that virtually, and it doesn't work. Because here's what I can tell everybody. Everybody, for me, presenting now, everyone's in the front row. Everybody's in the front row. In the last 24 years, I've presented to 1.6 million people in 33 different countries. And 6 weeks ago, I realised that everybody now is in the front row. There's not way up in the back there, they're in the front row. And so how you connect with people virtually is really powerful. Bring the energy I have in person to the virtual environment. Yeah. And I've got to tell you, Andrew, for me, you get energy from the group. So I have to really put the energy in because I'm the person who's going to generate it. One of my clients said to me the other day, you're missing not being in front of an audience. And I didn't say this arrogantly, but I said, I don't need an audience anymore. I can be as dynamic, I can be as energetic in my studio here at home as I am on stage. And in actual fact, I think I can be even more engaging in this environment. Speak more with our key customers. Yep, love it. So you got this handled as we're going through. Here's the next piece of the puzzle I just want to spend a bit of time. Oh, by the way, is it okay if I just help you on the journey a little bit? So you say, oh, Keith, I'm not a great reader. I sort of, I fall asleep and I don't seem to find the time. So I got a solution for you. The great folks at Performing Artistes are going to give you one of these books as an audiobook. And so there is no excuse for you. This is the last book I wrote. It's called Focus. 4 fast, easy strategies for beating procrastination forever. So they're going to send you out a link in the next few days so you can access that with their compliments and mine. So is that okay? Brilliant. Thanks, Andrew. I'm glad you're appreciative of that. So that's cool. Wonderful, wonderful. So let's now just head down the home track here. I'm going to get a bit of Q&A with JJ. Before JJ, I do one final message to everybody. You're most welcome, Christina. You're most welcome, Toby. You're most welcome, Beck. You're most welcome. All right, so let's spend a little bit of time and just start to think about what's really important to you to capitalise on what's going on at the moment. So back over here. So here's the question I've got for you. What do you need to capitalise? There is opportunities out there, but you've got to have the right mindset. We've already spoken about that. You've got to have clarity to know where you're going, because otherwise you're going to, take on too much or too little, or it's going to be low value and not high priorities, high payoff. But what do you need to focus on moving forward to capitalise on the opportunity? A couple of things here I wanted to share with you. The first piece around this is making sure that you're looking at your business in a way. So you want to break it down into not only these 4 amplified emotions, you've got to apply them to now going, is now the time in your business in the next 30, 60, 90 days to build your profile? I've got to tell you, I'm spending a lot of time putting out there because, by the way, most people, well, hopefully this is the same for you, and put a Y in the chat box, is most people go, Zoom, that's a little boring. Hopefully today it's not been boring. Hopefully this has been something different than you've ever seen before because it's a little bit more dynamic. So profile, you know, what are you doing to build your profile? What are you doing at this point in time to build your pipeline? You know, now's the time to reconnect with clients. Now's the time to connect with clients and just say, what can we do to help you? Don't need to sell you anything, but what can we do to add value to you? Because the first book I wrote was Creating Loyal, Profitable Customers. Because everyone talked about sales and everyone talked about service, but nobody talked about how do you keep them forever. And so this is about making sure that you've got great profile, that you're building your pipeline. So when you do come out of this, when you get on the other side of COVID, that you've got opportunities. What's the next one? People. Who do you need to make sure is on board with you and is coming on the journey with you? Who do you need to share your goal with moving forward? What is it that you need to do? And the final piece of the puzzle here are projects. You know, I shared with you before, I've got 12 projects, working on 3 at the moment, and that will set my business up. I don't know about you personally, but I've often felt, you know, gee whiz, I sort of feel like I'm a day, a week, or a month behind. And I've said to myself on more than one occasion, I wish I could just stop the world and catch up. Whoops, be careful what you wish for. You know, this is about making sure that you're working on the projects that are going to set your business up for the next 12, 2 years, do I dare even say 5 years down the track. Now is the time to master virtual. Now is the time to get your people to master virtual. Now is the time to fix, improve, enhance, develop, change, whatever you need to do in your business to make sure that you're heading in the right direction. So spend some time and start to do that as part of the process. And if you're really serious about this, when you get off this call, you're going to do something in the first hour. You're going to do something in the first day, the first week, and the first month. You're going to make sure that you are heading in the right direction. And it's just so critical now to implement, to, you know, starve your distractions, feed your focus. Starve your distractions, feed your focus. So what do you need to be focused on moving forward? So of those 4, let me just zip back to those 4 for you. You know, what is it that you need to capitalise on? And I'd love you to just to take a moment now, and I reckon I know the answer for a few people here, but I'd love you to put them in the chat box for me and write down what are those 4 areas that you need to work on moving forward. Is it profile? Is it pipeline at the moment? Is it people? Is it projects? And I can share with you what I've done in the last 8 weeks is worked on, what I've done this month is worked on building my profile as a virtual presenter. What I've done pipeline-wise is contacted all of my clients a couple of times now, top 300 and then the whole rest of the database. What I've done is I've got someone working my LinkedIn at the moment. What I've done is I've got those projects. So love to hear what you've jotting down in the Jill, for you, pipeline and projects. Love. Tanya, pipeline. Tim, pipeline. People. Krista, absolutely. You know, I love that quote. He or she who thinketh they're a leader and has no one following them is just out taking a walk. So you've got to make sure. Pipeline, yep, good. Danielle, people, yep. Help people develop the skills they need. Yep. It's a new world. It's a new norm, Nick. So we've got to give people update their skills. And now's the time to be training people, developing people. They need substance, they need clarity, they need skills. So that's really important. And Beck profile, super. All right, so before I finish up, and I'd love to answer any questions if you've got some questions, but I know some people don't have any questions, but you don't get away. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'd love you to write in the chat box for me, what's been the key learning from this session? What's been that key learning? What's been the value from today's session? So what is it for you that's really important that you've gotten out of it? So if you've got a question, put a Q in front of it. But if you don't have a question, I'd love you to type in there. And hats off to Performing Artists for just taking the initiative to add value to their clients. A lot of their competitors in the industry are like deers in a headlight. JJ and his team have got on the front foot. They've got on the front foot and say, how do we add value? How do we connect with people? All right, let me go through a couple of things here and we'll do this. 30-day plan. Yep, great. 30-day plan. The formula outline has been extremely helpful. Thank you, Tanya. I'm glad you enjoyed that. Nick, goal drivers, mine and those for yourself and for your people. Let me tell you, Nick, really powerful when your people understand what their driver is. You will start to have better coaching conversations with them. A different way of running Zoom meetings. Okay, thanks, Andrew. Yeah, it is a different way. I'll give you a quick example, Andrew. I've worked with the senior execs at the National Australia Bank. So we've got 4 big banks in Australia, not like you guys, but with multiple banks. But we've got 4 big banks and the National Australia Bank. So I've worked with their key executives. And I said to them, Tim Armstrong, who runs all of small business here in Australia, I said, Tim, do you want me to talk to your people about what I've learned virtual? He said, oh yeah, that'd be great to do. I said, but Tim, you've got to promise me, if it's a bit too basic, I want you to cut me off and I'll cover some other content. He said, no, Keith, it'll be okay. I said, but Tim, you got to tell me. He said, yep, no worries. So I go through the 6 things that I had then and shared with him some of those strategies on how to turn dull Zoom calls into dynamic for their exec team back to their people. So we're talking a few thousand people that are listening to these Zoom calls every week. And halfway through I said, Tim, is it a bit too basic? Do you want me to move on? He said, no, keep gold, keep on going. And all of those people have gone away and implemented those at that senior exec team, and now their people are doing it. So it's really important that you understand those. Happy to share those with you, Andrew. I'm happy if we've got time. Be grateful, change your attitude, and it will change everything going forward. 100%, Danielle. If you change your mindset, it changes your physiology. You change your physiology, all of a sudden you think better. Jill, for you, helped you break down the huge impending jobs and take it one small step at a time, 100%. Stop procrastinating and create a plan. Thanks, Tim. Real motivation, yeah. Real motivation comes from within. Beck, real inspiration comes from within. My role today was to give you ideas, to give you insights, to give you some information and give you a little bit of inspiration. But if you've got those, you move forward. Christina, for you, giving me a process to get momentum. I love momentum. Great use of technology for presentation skills. Yeah, thank you for that. But, but for the last, I've been a professional presenter for 24 years. I've had 5 presentation skills coaches. I've had 2 people who work with me just on storytelling. I've had, so I needed to then go, well, how do I transfer what I do on the big stage to the small screen? And that in itself is a real strategy. And I reckon if you're going to select a speaker, you want to make sure that they're just not standing in front of their laptop, in a decent shirt and a pair of board shorts, and they haven't paid the attention to detail. Actual fact, if you want to really know the key to great virtual presentations, attention to detail. And so the attention to detail is, knowing how all of this works. What else for other people? Mindset, yep, Laura Lee. Encouragement. Where is the... Oh yeah, where is the taking the work? So a great presenter, wonderful leadership expert, John Maxwell. That's his quote. He said, he or she who thinketh they're a leader and has no one following them is just out taking a walk. So really wonderful quote. I've read his books, years ago, and that quote's always stuck with me. Tanya, when you're setting goals, how specific should you make them? How many goals should you focus on each month? So that's a great question, Tanya. So here's the first thing, is that I believe there's 4 key areas. Here's the first area: professional, personal, physical, profitable. So profitable's got things to do with your money. Physical, health and fitness. Professional, with your work role, and personal with your personal life. And my suggestion to you is one goal in each of those 4 areas. So you're not spreading your energy too wide and too thin, and you're getting very, very clear, and you're back in this corridor. So those 4 key areas, once again, personal, professional, physical, and that's about strength of body, strength of mind, and then of course profitable, because I want to stick with all the P's, being around managing your money. And how many goals should I focus on each month? 1 in each of those 4 areas. When I am in my business, I've just got 1 goal at the moment. Otherwise, you spread yourself too thin, and you start working on, easy rather than things that give you the highest payoff. And this whole thing I talk about. Too many people are doing the 25 quid an hour jobs versus doing the 250,000, or $2,500 an hour job. Just give me a why, Tanya, if that made sense and that answered that question. Do you have any thoughts of how to create hybrid events, part virtual, part audience? Yes, I do, Toby. So one of the things there is that, so to give you an example, Tomorrow I am going to a studio, not my studio, I'm going to a studio, and there's a large mortgage broking company here in Australia called Aussie Home Loans. And so they've got 1,500 mortgage brokers around Australia, and tomorrow I will do an event for their platinum and their gold. It'll be in an actual studio that's been set up by an event company, and they have their own platform, and it's being live streamed to that. I believe that with virtual now, and the willingness of virtual, is that I believe there'll be people still wanting to go to a conference. But now it'll have the ability for someone in one of their team members in Glasgow who couldn't make the conference to now see the opening keynote speaker, the message from the CEO, and then there'll be breakout rooms, and it'll be both virtual and in person all at the same time. So that's the way I'm seeing things happen. I think conferences will come back a little slow because it'll be the whole self-isolation. And the self-isolation is, if the conference room held 500 people, I reckon you might only be able to have 150 people in that room. And so some companies will say, look, we still want to get our best people together, but we want to share that information now with everybody. And we have platforms to do that on. Yep, wonderful. Yep, makes sense, wonderful. Training someone who will probably never want to be on the camera, or investing in recruiting an individual who loves that process. Best course of action for the business when cash flow is tight. Yeah, look, a great question. I just think if people aren't willing to do it, we're living in unprecedented times. Would I prefer that we're all back in front of people? Yeah, but it's one of those things that if people aren't willing to change and evolve, then you've got to get people who are prepared to follow a process and do that. And maybe you get people to do this, and creates the top of the funnel for things moving forward. Hey, listen, let me wrap things up. I've got 2 slides. I'm going to hand it back to JJ as part of this process. So let me do that. I said to you earlier today, this is not about going through it. It's about not about going through the crisis, but it's about growing through the crisis. So that's the mindset you need to move forward. A good friend of mine had a chance to interview Sir Edmund Hillary before he passed away, and he asked him the question, what was it like when you got to base camp? Now, you've got to understand that he was part of an expedition which was led by a colonel from the UK, I think it was the UK Armed Forces. And so he was never expected to climb Everest. And so when the first attempt didn't work, they said, you're up next. And so my friend said to him, so what were you thinking when they said that you're going to climb Everest tomorrow? you know, when you looked up at Everest, what were you thinking? He said, when I looked up at Everest, he said, I thought it was too high, I thought it was too hard, and I thought it was too bloody cold. And my friend said to him, so what'd you do? And he said, simple, I just put one foot after the other. And so if you want to achieve everything you want to achieve, especially in these crazy times we live in, then you just got to put one foot after the other and take that first step, because you never know where it's going to lead you. Hey, JJ, thanks for the opportunity to hang out. Thanks, everybody, for that. And if you've got any other comments of what's been the value, please email JJ and his team. That'd be really cool. So, JJ, over to you.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Keith. Absolutely wonderful.